Good evening. We'll call to order Planning Commission, October 12th, 2022. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Mako.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, please call to roll.
Greenberg.
Here.
Hicks.
Here.
Mako.
Here.
Shapaka.
Here.
Siriano is absent. Tamarkin.
Here.
Wester.
Here.
Next, we'll do approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from September 28th, 2022?
So moved by Hicks.
Motion by Mr. Hicks. Do I have a second?
Second, Mako.
Second by Mr. Mako. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call to roll.
Hicks.
Yes.
Mako.
Yes.
Greenberg.
Yes.
Shapaka.
Abstain.
Tamarkin.
Yes.
Wester.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next, we'll turn it over to Mr. Roth, City Assistant Attorney, to swear in our speakers. Mr. Roth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are now at the public hearing portion of the meeting. The public hearing will operate as follows. Administrative staff will make a presentation or comment on the application. The applicant or their representative may then make a presentation or comment on the application. Public comment will then be open for 3 minutes allowed per speaker. Additional time may be requested. Permission is at the discretion of the chair. Speakers must complete a speaker slip and come to the podium and state their name. The applicant will then be given 10 minutes to comment. Additional time may be requested. Permission is at the discretion of the chair. If there is more than one application pending for a particular address, the presentation on each application may be consolidated and presented as one. At this time, will persons wishing to present testimony this evening please rise and raise your right hand to be sworn in? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, state I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. I did skip over additions and corrections to the agenda. We have none, so we'll move to the application part of the agenda. I'll read them into the record. First, we have V-0026-2022 to consider a variance application to vary Chapter 1171.03F fence standards of the codified ordinance of the City of Gahanna for property located at 116 Shepherd Street, parcel ID 025-000045. Current zoning OG1, Dana Ryan applicant. And we'll turn it over to Mr. Blackford from the city for a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On your screens right now is the location and zoning map. Property fronts Shepherd Street, and to the rear, Dawson Alley. Give you a little more context. Down here is Granville at the bottom of your screen, and then you have Mill Street off here in this direction. The property is zoned OG1, which is Old Gahanna Single Family. The way fence standards are in Gahanna, it's based off of like residential or commercial. It doesn't differentiate based off of the zoning. They are requesting a variance tonight to allow for a fence in the front yard. They're proposing a three-rail split rail fence with hard cloth. The code allows, well, I'll get to that in a second, sorry. 48 feet to the top of the fence, the rail, and then the posts go to 52 inches, sorry. And the way our code measures height, it's to the top of the post or the finial. So 52 inches is what they're requesting. 42 inches is what's allowed by the zoning code in the front yard. We'll get into a bunch of images here shortly that shows why this lot's a little bit different than others. And that's because it has two fronts. It's not a corner lot, though. It's what most zoning codes would call a through lot, which with the alley to the rear and a regular road to the front. But our code doesn't define through lots, and it doesn't have different fence regulations. So what really acts as a rear yard from a zoning code standpoint is a front yard. That's why they need the variance request. So this is their site plan here. Oops. Technical difficulties. Come on. here we go. Shepherd Street on the left-hand side of the screen. This is to the west. Here in red is where they want to put their the fence. In this location, this is the alley. There's an existing garage. This does go a little bit beyond the garage. And it would be about 4.5 feet from the actual pavement to where the fence starts. They were kind enough to provide some images of their property and where that general fence location is. This is looking southwest. You can see here the fence, it extends beyond the garage. Then this is looking north. Here's an image that shows from a zoning code here in red where exactly the front yards are. And this is sort of the challenge when you have a through lot, which basically every property down there in Mill Street, because of the grid pattern streets, are either a corner lot or a through lot. So the areas in red is what would be considered a front yard, and that's where the height of the fence is limited to 42 inches. Also, the style is limited, but the style, decorative open face fence is what's allowed, and that's what they're requesting. So it's not location, it's not type of fence, it's just the height, going from 42 inches to 52 inches. Now here's some Google Street images. This is actually looking north on Dawson Alley. The applicant's residence would be, not really visible. It's down here. What this shows is that, yes, there are other fences along this alley. I can tell you that I'm not aware of any variances. I don't know how these got here. I don't know if they were approved many years ago or they just happened. But really, there's some existing conditions out here. And then this is the subject property right here. But this image shows, again, you got a neighbor's fence. And these are like the 6-foot privacy fences here. So this is a little bit less than what some of the other properties have in the area. It's a pretty common condition in Old Gahanna because of the age of the area and that there's a lot of accessory structures and fences that wouldn't be able to be built to today's code or the code from 20 years ago. Variance criteria. 3 different criteria to consider. Are there special circumstances or conditions applying to the land, building, or use? Is the variance necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of the property? And would it adversely affect the health and safety? Staff, we do recommend approval. We do think this is a bit of a unique situation. When you have alleys, most zoning codes would classify that as a rear yard. Again, our code doesn't, so it's a front yard. Ideally, it probably should call it a rear yard. So that is a little bit of a unique situation that only exists in the Old Gahanna area. If the alley wasn't present, again, they would have 6 feet would be allowed in that location. And with that, that's my brief summary. Happy to answer any questions, and I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackford. We have the applicant at the podium. State your name, address, and if you'd like to add any commentary.
Dana Ryan.
You can raise the microphone if you like.
Dana Ryan, 116 Shepherd Street, and I'm available for questions.
Okay. We'll close the city portion of the presentation. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment and open it up to the commission for questions. Any questions from the commission? Mr. Greenberg.
Could you go back, Mr. Blackford, to the description of the height of the fence?
The 48-foot one?
There it is, right there. The second bullet, what is hard cloth?
Oh, it's like a rectangular chicken wire.
So it's chicken wire?
Yeah, it's the reason I'm applying for the fence is we have a dog. We wanted to keep it open, so we're not obstructing anyone's view, changing significantly the view. But we want to keep our dog in
I
the split
got it.
rail. Yeah,
I got it. I just
you can
didn't,
climb under there.
didn't know. I have a fence with chicken wire, so that's what I call it,
Yep.
not hard cloth. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mr. Chapaka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So some of your neighbors have a 6-foot-high fence there in the back, considered the back. Is there a reason why you're not electing to do that or asking to do that?
To do a privacy fence?
Yes.
I spoke with my neighbor on the, I don't know the address off the top of my head, but to the right of my house. And he expressed that he'd prefer it to be open, and I agree. They're small yards. I think a 6-foot privacy fence would be claustrophobic a little. I think it would even make like our yard feel smaller. It would make his yard feel smaller.
Well, that is true. It does feel like you're in a playpen.
Yeah.
Do you think having the open fence is going to bother anybody walking on the alleyway or something with the dogs, being able to see them and yiping and,
No, our dog's a friendly boy.
is it a Cujo dog?
No, he's not. He's a big, friendly black lab.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you. No more questions.
Thank you. Seeing no more questions, I'll ask, do I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move to approve variance application V-0026-2022.
I have a motion by Mr. Greenberg. Do I have a second?
Second, Chapaka?
Second by Mr. Shapeka. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Greenberg,
Yes.
Chappaka,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Tamarkin,
Yes.
Wester,
Yes.
Mako.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Good luck with your construction, and appreciate you appearing in front of us before it is done.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to variance V-0027-2022 to consider a variance application to vary Chapter 1143-08BC of the codified ordinance of the City of Gahanna to allow a shed installation on property located at 345 Wittenberg Street, parcel ID 025-002087, current zoning SF3, Maurice Manley, applicant. Turn it over to Mr. Blackford for a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, we're going to have a couple of shed variances on our agenda for this evening. This time, we're in the SF3 single-family zoning district. The majority of properties are similarly zoned. It's Goshen Elementary, just to the south of this, in the purple RID area. Unlike fences, the zoning does dictate where accessory structures can be placed. The request is for a variance to allow the shed in both the rear and the side yard. It is a 10 by 10 shed. It is approximately just under 5 feet from the rear property line and just over 5 feet from the side property line. In SF3, single family 3, the setbacks for unattached accessory structures is 10 feet from the rear yard. So they're just about half, and 7.5 feet from the side yard. Here is the site plan. One thing I think to note on this, it is in the rear corner. There is a privacy fence along here, but the privacy fence is not right on the property line. It's about a foot off. So when you do these measurements at 52 and 46 here, you got to add a foot on to that. So the fence isn't on the property line. There is a fence that goes around the property. This request, there was a shed permit in 2021 that was applied for and approved. That particular permit did have a 10-foot side and a 10-foot rear yard setback. So unfortunately, there was a little bit of an error in where the shed was actually placed, and when staff went out and did an inspection, they noticed that it wasn't in the proper location. That's why we have a variance before you. So it was permitted. There was just a little bit of an oopsie there in where it was located. Here's the aerial that shows the shed there in the top right, top left corner of the property. Variance criteria is the same that we saw with the previous request. Are there special circumstances with the land, building, or use? Is the variance necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of property rights, and would it adversely affect the health and safety? Staff recommends approval. I mean, it is screened by a 6-foot privacy fence. We have seen an inordinate amount of shed variances this year. Like 5 and 5 feet from the side and rear is kind of what we've seen in a lot of these requests. I think a lot of those requests had less, they didn't necessarily have a privacy fence, and there might have been some vegetation. This one screened a little bit better in staff's opinion than some of the other ones. So we do recommend approval of this particular request. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Blackford. And we have the applicant up at the podium again. Please state your name and address and any commentary you'd like to add.
Maurice Manley, 345 Wittenberg Street. I just like to say I'm not the only one who made a bad contractor move. Well, other than that, we're okay. No comment.
Okay, we'll close the applicant portion of the meeting and turn it, anyone from the public like to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment, turn it over to the commission for questions. Any questions? I just asked one, when you say bad contractor, did you put it there, or did somebody else build it there? I think I read in the thing. Lowe's put it there?
It was supposed to be a contractor for Lowe's, but I don't know if they really were, if they made a mistake like that, so who knows?
Or they didn't read the permit you were issued?
Probably. Did what they want to do, put the concrete slab, and then next thing you know, it's up. I thought everything was okay. I didn't pay it any attention. I worked too much.
All right. Well, thank you. Seeing no additional comments, I'll ask, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move the approval of item V-0027-2022.
I have a motion by Mr. Hicks. Do I have a second?
Second, Wester.
Second by Mr. Wester. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Hicks,
Yes.
Wester,
Yes.
Chappaka,
Yes.
Tamarkin,
Yes.
Mako,
Yes.
Greenberg.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to our third variance. We have V-0028-2022 to consider a variance application of Variance Chapter 1143.08C of the codified ordinance of the City of Gahanna to allow for a shed installation on property located at 1042 Graythorn Place. Parcel ID 025-010521, current zoning SF3, Sanjay Sani, applicant. And we'll turn it over to Mr. Blackford for a presentation.
Our final variance for this evening should look really familiar. This is actually the same location and zoning map that I showed you all back in July for a shed variance for the adjacent property to the south of this site. Similar request to that one. They're requesting a variance to allow a shed within the required side yard. It's a 57 square foot shed, a little bit smaller than the last shed variance we had. It's 2 feet from the property line. It's zoned SF3. That means there's a 7.5 foot setback for the shed. The placement is not in the rear yard, so unlike maybe the previous request, this is just a side yard variance. The adjacent property I was just alluding to with their variance, that was approved at 3.5 feet. So there is a shed that would basically be almost right next to this shed if this variance is approved. Excellent site plan that was provided by the applicant. Ignore north arrow here and all that, but they did a great job of providing the location, again, about 2 feet from the property line. And it is literally, right next to the neighbor's property there that had the shed at 3.5 feet. Larger yards in this area with these, at the end of the cul-de-sac with these abnormal shaped lots. They are fairly large, but I think with this and the adjacent property, there was some discussion about sort of shielding the location of this shed with the natural vegetation. I know the applicant's package contained a number of images, and this is sort of, standing, I would imagine, towards the front yard here, looking back into the sort of side and rear. You can see the substantial amount of vegetation. I know from comments and review of this application, I think there's some trees that prevent moving this shed farther away from this area. So it's well screened, but staff, which was me in this case, I was like, hey, can you match the 3.5 feet? But there's some landscaping that prevents it from being pushed out further. This is the image of the shed. I don't think this palm tree is included, so I don't think they have it up already. But this is what is requested. And again, we're not looking at the material type. It is just the location of the shed. The variance criteria, which I know you're all real familiar with, but I'll say it one more time, and that is there a special circumstance or condition of the land, building, or use? Is the variance necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of property rights, and would it adversely affect the health and safety? Staff recommends approval of this request. I mean, we did recommend approval of the other request. It's pretty much the same thing. It is very well screened from the right-of-way. I mean, it would be very difficult to see this from the majority of properties in the area. So it really shouldn't have much of an impact, if any, on anyone. And with that, I think I already covered the adjacent property. So I will be quiet and turn it over to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackford. Again, we have the applicant up. Please state your name and address and any additional commentary.
My name is Sanjay Sani, 1042 Graythorn Place, and just wanted to add, we did add some additional shrubs on the side by the fence, so it would screen the shed from the street view, as well as, you know, we selected the shed so it would be least obtrusive from a color standpoint, selected a darker shed. And I'm open to any questions.
Thank you very much. We'll close this portion of the meeting. Is anyone from the public here would like to add any commentary? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting and turn it over to the commission. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, I'll ask, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve variance application number V00282022.
I have a motion by Mr. Chapaka. Do I have a second?
Second, Mako.
Second by Mr. Mako. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chapaka.
You know, when you walk out onto a site, and it's kind of like the previous application, if you're looking to put a shed in, you kind of just look at the existing situation. It appears that this would be a very logical place to put the shed, so I will be in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapaka. Seeing no additional comments or questions, we'll turn it over for a vote.
Chapaka?
Yes.
Mako?
Yes.
Tamarkin?
Yes.
Wester?
Yes.
Greenberg?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I forgot Hicks, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I apologize.
So quiet down there, we forgot he was here. That's coming. Thank you very much. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, we have a design review. We'll have DR-0016-2022 to consider a design review application for a sign for property located at 313 South Hamilton Road, parcel ID 025-000509, current zoning CX1, hand and stone massage and facial spa. Mark Rapsich, applicant. And we'll turn it over to Mr. Blackford for a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last item on tonight's agenda. This piece of property is just south of us. It's where Mr. Greenberg was just eating dinner, I think. He's getting his Arby's down here. This is CX1, which is commercial mixed-use neighborhood. Don't deny it, Mr. Greenberg. And unlike some of the other requests, signage is basically, for the most part, dictated by the zoning classification. When you have multi-tenant signage, there is a design review application that's supposed to be required, and that's to adopt a master sign plan. So again, when you have multi-tenants, the code really doesn't have language for what signage is allowed. It's the master sign plan that sets what those standards are. And so in 2014, there was a master sign plan that was approved for the shops at Rocky Fork. This particular tenant is Hand and Stone. They're taking a corner tenant space. So the master sign plan that was adopted in 2014 was above and beyond what most of our master sign plans have stated, and they have language for window signs in particular, and that's what's here before us tonight, is a window sign. And in that master sign plan, it says each tenant window sign is limited to 50% of the area of the windows. So obviously, the more windows you have, the more window signage that you're allowed. That's pretty generous. I'll get into just exactly what the code allows and what the master sign plan allows, and then what this request is. But essentially, the request is to, have the vinyl, hand and stone, which I know is in the package, and I'll show here. Basically covering up 100% of the windows. That equates to 185 square feet of window signs. The location here, this is the tenant space. Here we go. So this is a corner tenant space, which the master sign plan allows for more signage than most tenant spaces here, and I'll get into that a little bit as well. So these are the windows that are facing Hamilton Road. This is the current condition. Obviously, they're vacant, and this is what is proposed. This would be the south-facing facade. This is what is proposed. So again, 185 square feet. There are design review criteria. This isn't a variance. Again, it's a design review because this isn't in code. They're deviating from their approved master sign plan. Compatibility with existing structures. Does it contribute to the improvement of the design review district, which would basically be this southern South Hamilton corridor would be the district. Does it contribute to the economic and community vitality of the district? Does it maintain, protect, and enhance physical surroundings? So staff, we do not recommend approval of this application. We do not believe that 100% of the window coverings are compatible with this particular shopping center or the other shopping centers in the area or the other commercial buildings in the area. And I would say that, once we kind of grant it for one, we do have to consider what kind of precedent that might set, and I can pretty much guarantee you that other folks are going to be asking for this as well. So obviously, they're all individual decisions, but once you allow it for one, it gets a little bit more likely that there will be a 2, 3, and a 4, and so on. So on your screen right now is a rectangle right there, and that rectangle represents 8 square feet. 8 square feet is what our code allows for window signs, and that's whether you're a 1/10 of an acre or 10 acres. You're allowed 8 square feet of window signs. This rectangle represents what the master sign plan allows, and based off of, that's 92.5 square feet. So that's graphically representative of the difference between the code and what the master sign plan allows. Again, they could just pull a building permit tomorrow and get 92.5 square feet of window signs. This is what's requested. So this little box in the corner, this is 8 square feet. This is what's allowed, 92.5 square feet. This is 185 square feet. So again, what the MSP allows is over 11 times more than what our code would already allow. This is much more than 11 times. So I'm aware of one other request, variance or similar request for window signs. Some of you might remember that. That was back in 2019. That was for Options Medical. If you recall that at all in the back of your brains, that was 47.5 square feet is what they were approved at. So again, this master sign plan already allows, over 11 times more than what our code allows, and what they allow is basically twice of what our previous variance was. So again, staff, just no way we could support this. Don't think that this is appropriate. Again, window signs are something that most folks, quite honestly, don't ask for permits. So when you see a lot of window signs, that's probably somebody who didn't ask for any permits in that. There is a tenant there that has similar amount of window signs. We were doing some research this afternoon, and there was no permit or variance that we were able to find. So I think most of those tenants there that might have something similar or less didn't ask for approval. So again, staff can't support it, don't believe it's appropriate. The master sign plan is already extremely generous. There's no other way to put it than extremely generous for window signs. In addition to a window sign, because this is a tenant space that has is a corner tenant space, is I think how it was phrased in the master sign plan, there are allowed 3 different wall signs as well. And in all total, those wall signs can be just around 100 square feet. So without any deviations from what's approved, they're allowed almost 200 square feet of signage. To put that in context, again, if you have a 5-acre site that's zone commercial or industrial, you're only getting 150 square feet total. That's what our code allows. So this one tenant space, which is, I believe is about 35 feet in width, has more than pretty much any industrial site, any commercial site, again, without any type of variance. So that already seems pretty extreme in staff's opinion. So again, we couldn't support this. And quite frankly, I don't think we could support this in the master sign plan if it was being proposed today. So that concludes staff's comments. Happy to answer any questions. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackford. We have the applicant at the podium. Please state your name, address, and relationship to this project, and any additional comments you have.
Mark Rubich with Fast Signs of Westerville. We're at 645A Brooks Edge Boulevard, and I'm representing the client. He is out of state today, so I am representing him. And I guess my comments are that, as the gentleman stated, the neighboring 2 tenants, both a dentist and a chiropractor, have the exact same thing that we're proposing. Their windows on Hamilton are all covered. So we had my client based his look and design based on what he sees in that same retail space. So we are just complying to what he's asking us to do. We knew that the code is different, but since other tenants have this a close to similar look, that's why we went with this application. He is favorable of possibly removing the top windows at the top because they're over so many feet, and this is advertising, but he's also doing it for privacy and protection of the people in this area of the retail space. Other than that, I can't comment more on him because he's not here, but that is what I am allowed to say at this moment.
Thank you very much. We'll close the presentation portion of the meeting. Is anyone from the public here who would like to comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting and turn it over to the commission for questions. Mr. Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do remember the other application that Mr. Blackford brought up, and I think a few of us were on the commission at that time, and I drove by that site today, and it doesn't appear they ever put the window clings up. So for some reason, I'm not sure why they didn't, but I do recall that application. I'll have some comments during the portion of our deliberation about that. But my question is, and I know you're the contractor, not the client, so if you're able to answer, has the owner obtained permission from the landlord for this deviation from the master sign plan? Did they submit that in the application, or a letter of support or anything?
It was there.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked as well. I didn't review this one, so when I was kind of checking it, it was there.
Okay, because my follow-up was, are we able to grant variances? But it sounds like the landlord supports the application. And Mr. Blackford clarified why this is not a variance and it is a design review. So I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
I don't have any. Mr. Specka.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. So I'm looking at privacy. You don't know the inner workings of the inside of which parts of the lobby.
The windows to the east that face Hamilton, I think, is a storage area, break room area. There's a lot of supplies in there from what I saw in my walkthrough, but I haven't seen it since it's actually been open. And then on the southeast corner on that side, I think it's also for clients and also privacy from activity in that space.
So do you consider the west side the front of the building? Is that where all the clients come in?
That's just a lobby and a reception area.
So this is kind of acting backwards. To me, that's kind of acts back a little bit backwards of what I would want to see architecturally. I can see all the parking, but that front facade and have that look there, I would think that would be a little more open and inviting instead of having all the screen there.
Well, most of the other tenants' entrances are on the parking lot side, so they consider that the front, and they consider the other side, Hamilton, right, the back.
All right, thank you, Mark. Mr. Blackford, you said that there was another storefront there that is covered?
Both, next two, both are, dentist and the chiropractor.
Is the city going to make a comment or a little stop by?
Yep, we're going to have to.
We're gonna have to look.
a lot of it covered too. I don't know what percentage. but
Yeah,
they have a lot
it's,
rear
it's
windows.
not the same amount. So again, there's a lot that's allowed by code, but I know Brace's Bar in particular has pretty much the same thing that they had requested. You know, we're going through and trying to find the paperwork, but without paperwork, then yes, there will be visits by code enforcement because we have to be fair and balanced.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Specca. Mr. Mako?
A couple questions. First off, for Mr. Blackford. Excuse me. So did I have this written down correctly, that 200 square feet of signage is allowed?
Basically, right around that amount for this particular tenant, yes, it's correct. Between window and wall signs, about 200 square feet's allowed without any deviations. Just regular permitting, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Then for the applicant, did I hear you correctly state that they are agreeable to removing the top portion there of those signs?
From what I understood from our previous conversation, it's been a while, but I think that would be something you would entertain, yes.
Okay, this might not be a fair question, but if they're agreeable to that, do you happen to know rough calculations what that would amount to?
Me?
Yes.
Percent-wise, I do not.
Okay, fair enough. Again,
Yeah, you'd have to get, I could do it, but not top of my head.
okay. Nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and I have some questions here. The master sign plan overrides zoning because it was approved.
Yes,
So
correct.
the 8-foot that zoning would allow means nothing.
It means everything to 99% of the properties. But just to give you a comparison of, yes, it doesn't in this case because it's a master sign plan. But again, 99% of the properties do not have, and so the code would allow 8
8-foot.
Yeah, 8
But
square
on
feet.
this property,
There is. And that's a huge distinction, yes.
the master sign plan overrules zoning, so 92.5 feet are allowed for window signs, 100 feet for a wall sign or combination of wall signs.
Correct.
And this, that's on the screen here, this is what's facing Hamilton Road, correct? What faces the parking lot? Is there any window?
Just their entrance and all just glass.
More glass.
Yeah, it's almost identical for the other opposite, the west corner, but they don't have any graphics on. They just have like their store hours and their logo on one of the doors.
So there will be no graphics on the,
Be the west and the southwest.
that's facing west, facing the parking lot.
That's correct.
So we're only looking for graphics on the Hamilton Road side.
Which is 50% of what they asked me to put on the proof pages was, it's 100% of the windows of 50% of the total glass area. So there was half. The other half was not covered.
So does that change our calculation?
I would need paperwork. It's the first I'm hearing of any of this, so I don't know. I can't do that here. But there's different requirements in master sign plan between glass and windows. I don't know what the distinction between glass and windows are, because I didn't.
Zoning had me change our proof pages to state, it had to be actually typed on the proof page. It said, we are covering 50% of the total window glass area, but 100% of the area we're actually proposing. And it should be on one of the proof pages. Zoning made me do that.
So I'm going to make an assumption that our application may be off here. But with that in mind, we only know what we know and what has been applied for here. I know we're not getting into the wall sign here, but I assume there's going to be 100 feet of wall sign at some point. Probably not by Fast Signs, it would be by a neon sign company.
So he has not, there are some proposed, we are not involved with that.
Okay. That's all. Those are my questions. I'll have some comments.
Mr. Greenberg had a question.
Well, I think he covered my question, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I'm asking questions or just putting thoughts out there.
Right.
All right. Seeing no more questions, we'll open up. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move for approval, design review 0016-2022.
I have a motion by Mr. Wester. Do I have a second?
Second by Hicks.
Second by Mr. Hicks. Do I have any discussion? Mr. Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In comparing this application to the other one in recent memory, I revisited the meeting where the options, the weight loss center asked for a variance, and the reasoning then was there was a screening component. So again, there were some sensitive things going on inside the building, and from the road that kind of looks down on that shopping center, they wanted to screen the view. There was also a wayfinding aspect of that prior request. There's no monument signage, there's no signage on Johnstown Road that the applicant back then could rely on to help clients or potential clients or customers find the location. So the request was more for wayfinding and screening. I've heard some of the same reasons in this application, but I think this is different. It's a different location. I don't think that window clings are needed for wayfinding, especially if there's a wall sign that's going in. So the need for this, for wayfinding, I don't think is a strong reason. It seems more like advertising to me. Again, you can screen with blinds or some other kind of interior type of screening as opposed to a window cling. I won't be supporting the application for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Mr. Wester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't be supporting this because I believe, first, Mr. Blackford cited some very good reasons for it. Mr. Hicks raised additional points. And for me, I think it becomes a question of aesthetics, that the impact of that whole shopping center, which isn't that old. What is it, maybe 5 years? Has it been there that long? When you get the screenings, you get all that signage, it gets pretty busy. And that's an entryway into the city, into our city. And I wonder, in my mind, what's the image that the city wants to present? With all that, that's why I won't be supporting this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wester. Mr. Shabaka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the master sign plan has enough leeway to have a little bit more creative screening pattern. If I look at this, I agree with Mr. Wester. It's too much advertisement on the front. It doesn't present a very good view along the street. I think they could take away the signs at the top completely. I mean, if you're blocking the view from the street, I'm already below in the car, I'm down low. If I'm walking along there, nobody's higher than the 6'8" door, 7-foot door. So there's really no reason to block above it if it's just for privacy or you're blocking out a stock room. And I think the last one that we did kind of approve, it had a little bit more of an architectural feel. It had a nice arc to it, and the upper portion wasn't closed. I mean, as I look at this, I can see some of the imagery that they have, and I mean, if the outline of the screen kind of mimics some of that and create a little bit more interest in it, and that all falls in with the master sign plan. So even if you do take out some and you get creative with it, that falls within the leeway that's given already. So I will not be in support also. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Shabaka. Mr. Greenberg.
I also will not be in support of the application. My first review was very overwhelming to see all that signage on the storefront. I also agree with Mr. Hicks that they could use shades for screening on the inside to keep the customers that are in there discreet, so that wouldn't be an issue. And for all the other items that my colleagues have raised, including coming into the city and seeing that, would be very overwhelming in my opinion. So I will not be in support.
Thank you. Mr. Bago?
No further comments.
No comments? And I'm just going to agree with my colleagues I think the master sign plan is very generous and very liberal. Certainly as generous as any master. We've approved a lot of master sign plans in the last year under my watch, leadership here on the commission, and I don't recall any that allow for 50% coverage. That's a lot of coverage, so I also will not be in support. And with that, clerk, can we please take a vote?
Wester,
No.
Hicks,
No.
Tamarkin,
No.
Mako,
No.
Greenberg,
No.
Chappaka.
No.
Motion fails. Thank you. We'll let you go back and rethink it and come back to the city with a revised plan. With that, that closes the public portion of the agenda. We'll move it over to unfinished business. We have none. New business, we have none. Official reports. Assistant City Attorney, Ms. Roth.
Nothing to report at this time, Mr. Chair.
Director of Planning, Mr. Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, I'd like to introduce our new planner officially on camera to everyone. Over my left-hand shoulder is Madeline Gapka. She's our new planner. You'll be seeing her at these meetings and on the microphone here before you know it. So thank you, Madeline. Welcome aboard. Secondly, our next meeting, I believe, is October 26th. That is going to be a pretty beefy agenda. I'm expecting a few projects. I think we might have like a middle school project, new medical office, and maybe a couple other ones. So a little bit healthier agenda than we've had the last couple of meetings. With that, thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll check the hockey schedule for that night.
Please do. Please do.
And back to our city council liaison.
Yeah, really quickly, October 17th, which is next Monday, will be the public hearing and presumably the vote for the Morse Road multifamily project, which I think now it was August when that was before Planning Commission. Seems like it was just a beautiful dream. I thought it was just the other night, but back in August. So keep your eyes on that one. Because if it does pass, then you will see, presumably here in the next coming months, final development plans, design review for the actual layout and everything related to the rezoning request. Thank you.
I think it feels like yesterday. Chair has no additional comments. Anything from CIC?
We have our next scheduled meeting next Tuesday, so nothing to report.
All right. We have no correspondence and actions. Any final comments from the commission members? Mr. Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to remind the commission members of a schedule change starting in November. We switched to the first and third Wednesdays, so to assist with planning for the holidays, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. So I'm sure we'll discuss it again at our next meeting, but we'll switch to the first and third. That's it.
Thank you.
I have nothing.
Mr. Mako.
Yes, just, again, welcome to our new staff member, Ms. Kafka. Did I get that correct? Kapka. Okay. Well, again, welcome. I'm sure you'll do well.
Thank you very much. And I have no additional comments. We'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Get you home for the second period of the hockey game.
So moved.
Something different there.
He doesn't want to spend